Law. In this short lecture, I will give you a couple of reasons for the non-existence of God. The first reason why God doesn't exist is because God is perfect, and God would have never created such an imperfect world. The second reason why God doesn't exist is because God would have never created the human beings that are capable to do evil sins and crimes and so on. And we actually can ask the simple question, why God created the human beings from the beginning? If he wanted to put them to the test, then it makes no sense, because he could have created perfect creature that will never do evil and sins and crimes, and then he didn't need to put anyone to test. Okay, and we also should remember that God knows what will happen in the future, and for that reason he knew that the human beings will do evil and sins and crimes. So if you knew it from the beginning, so why he created them from the beginning? As I have already said, he could have created perfect creatures that are not capable to do any wrong at all. And therefore, God didn't create that world, and therefore God doesn't exist. The third reason why God doesn't exist is that God would have never created such a world in which there are so much human sufferings, so much violence, so much deaths and murders, and so much wars, and so much poverty and hunger, and so much natural disasters such as earthquakes and floods and hurricanes. God would have never created such a bad world, and therefore God didn't create that world, and therefore God doesn't exist. The fourth reason why God doesn't exist is that God would have never created such a reality in which the very existence of the predator is dependent in his ability to kill the prey. The very existence of the lion is dependent in his ability to kill the deer or any other animal. Such cruelty and such injustice would have never created by God, and therefore God doesn't exist. Okay, and the fifth reason why God doesn't exist, that there are actually three monotheistic religions. Monotheistic is defined as a belief in one God, or the oneness of God. And that religions are the Judaism, the Christianity, and the Islam. And they actually contradict each other in the description or the explanation of how God created the world. And they actually don't have the same God. The God of the Christianity is not the same God as of the Judaism or as of the Islam. So because of all the contradictions and the differences in God, we can deduce that they are all fake, they are not true. They are actually the invention of the human beings. And God also was created by the human beings. And therefore God doesn't exist. And the sixth and the last reason why God doesn't exist, because there is a logic reason. We can say that logically a being that is omnipotent is impossible to exist, or an entity that is all power is impossible to exist. And I will explain you why. Because we can ask the simple question, if God is able to create such a big stone that he himself cannot lift. If the answer to that question is yes, then we can say that God is not able to lift the stone that he himself created. And therefore God is not omnipotent. God is not all power. And if the answer to that question is negative, then we can say that God is not able to create such a big stone that he himself cannot lift. And therefore we can deduce the same conclusion, that God is not omnipotent, God is not all power. Anyway, from that example, we can deduce that there is no such entity that is omnipotent. There is no such a being that is all power, because logically it cannot exist. And therefore God that is defined as all power, logically it cannot exist, and therefore God doesn't exist. So those were all the reasons for the non-existence of God. Okay, thank you very much.